In this episode of Driving Home the Faith with Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse as a guest, she discusses a major Supreme Court case involving parental rights, free speech, and the care of children. The conversation explores how laws restricting certain types of therapy impacts families, limits what help minors can seek, and raise serious First Amendment concerns. It also examines the broader cultural and legal implications, including how ideology, legal strategies, and public policy are shaping the future of counseling, parental authority, and the well-being of children in the United States.
With me now is Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse. She's an economist and founder of the Ruth Institute, a global interfaith coalition that helps Christians defend the family and build a civilization of love. Her most recent book is The Sexual State: How Elite Ideologies are Destroying Lives. Dr. Morse, welcome back to Driving Home the Faith, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too, Ken. It's good to be back, but I had a beautiful Easter Triduum, and I hope you did too.
I did. I had 13 grandchildren in the house over the weekend, so it was full of joy and happiness and lots of fun. 13 grandchildren, the oldest of which is 11, and the youngest of which is, I think, about 3 months. So it was a good time.
So you're doing your part to stave off demographic winter.
I am doing my part, and my children are doing their part as well. So, So
glad to hear it.
Yeah. I just had Mary Rice Hassan on before, and her father, who was a legendary law professor at Notre Dame, had, I think, 8 or 9 kids, and all of his kids have had 8 or 9 kids, and now they're having grandkids. So now. We are going to talk about wins today, victories today.
Okay.
And I want to for our listeners, I want to frame this for our listeners, because this is the thing that I most admire about the Ruth Institute, is that everything that you do, no matter what topic you're discussing, no matter what issue you're addressing, you have children in mind. The Ruth Institute could be defined, I think, from my perspective, as an institute which has children and the well-being and the health and happiness of children in mind. And everything that we're going to talk about today is centered precisely on the happiness, the health, and the well-being of children, and the safety of children, even against governments and laws that have been designed, from my perspective, and I'm sure yours too, to harm children. And that's what we want to talk about today. Now, you filed an amicus brief, that is the Ruth Institute, filed an amicus brief in the Childs versus Salazar case, which the Supreme Court ruled on before Easter, so we haven't talked about it yet. First of all, tell us a little bit about the Childs case and why the Ruth Institute filed its amicus brief.
Yes, well, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for saying that about us being pro-child, because that really is true. That's what sets us apart from a lot of other organizations that are, there are a lot of pro-family groups, a lot of pro-life groups, and a lot of people concerned about issues raised by feminism for or against. But I feel like if you start from the perspective of the child, you're going to come up with better institutions than if you start from any other framework, because they're the vulnerable party. And they're the future, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
And everybody's a child. It's egalitarian. It's 100% egalitarian, right? Everybody starts as a child, this lawsuit that you're talking about, this Supreme Court case, is called Childs versus Salazar. Kaylee Childs is a Christian therapist in Colorado, and she filed suit against Salazar, I forget first name of Salazar, who is the person responsible for various kinds of regulatory agencies within the state of Colorado, because Colorado has a law that they describe as a ban on conversion therapy. What it really is what the statute actually says is anyone who performs therapy that purports to change or reduce a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, that counts as conversion therapy. So it's targeting licensed counselors that they can lose their license. They can be fined. They can basically be kicked out of their profession if they're found to be performing conversion therapy. And the term conversion therapy itself is an ideological term that was invented to create the impression that you're doing all sorts of aversive techniques, that you're at some summer camp where some Bible-thumping preacher is banging you over the head with the Bible and, dousing you with cold water and doing electroshock.
Come out.
That is calculated. It's calculated to make you think that's what they're talking about. But in point of fact, that type of stuff's already illegal. And what the statute is talking about is talk therapy, voluntary talk therapy for minors, where their parents take them there voluntarily. And the parents choose and the parents take them there. And this particular statute, and like lots of them now, is not only concerned with sexual orientation, but it's also concerned with gender identity. Mm-hmm. And of course, a lot of people jumped on the gender identity part and said, wait a second, the only alternative to medicalized treatment of gender dysphoria is talk therapy. Yeah. And you're basically outlawing talk therapy, before you even start, that's being ruled off the table. So it's and the Supreme Court, to its credit, ruled correctly, and they didn't even get to the issues that we have expertise in. We filed an amicus brief to say this therapy does not hurt people, and in fact, it helps people. And by the way, the only evidence they have is about sexual orientation therapy. Right. Anyway, they have nothing on gender identity. They have nothing that says what it purports to. They say it says.
And Jennifer,
so it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
and let me go back. I do want to get into dig deep into the decision and especially the majority decision, because it was an 8-1 decision, which itself is very encouraging. But before that, I want to pursue this a little bit more in the context of what I said earlier, that what these bans do is they don't merely inhibit the therapist, the psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor, but they deny to the child the help that he wants to get. So basically what this statute in Colorado says, not just to the therapist, you can't do this so-called conversion therapy, but it's telling the patient that you can't seek this treatment, that if you present with gender dysphoria or same-sex attraction and you want to overcome it, you don't want to have same-sex attraction anymore. You want to get over this sense that your body doesn't match your physiology. You can't do that. We have made it illegal. And I know that sounds extreme, but that's exactly what the Colorado statute did.
That's exactly right. And it's important to say that this statute applies to minors. Yeah. But it's also important to note that around the world, these bans go beyond minors, and they go beyond what the counseling room in the country of Australia. A couple of the provinces in Australia, they've gone so far as to outlaw prayer, voluntary prayer, even if the person isn't present. If you say, I pray that Jimmy overcomes his same-sex attraction, and someone hears you, that is potentially a violation of the ban on conversion therapy. So so that tells you what the international gay lobby really wants. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's why that's important. We're never going to have that in the U.S. because we have the First Amendment, which I'm going to mention in a minute. But this is where these people are headed with the thing, and that's important for people to realize. And it's also important for people to be aware that the campaign for these laws, that the very well-funded pro-gay activist organizations have put on, whether it's the Trevor Project or the Human Rights Campaign, all these different very well-funded organizations, they've put on massive propaganda campaigns, let's call it what it is, to say, this is always dangerous. It's always dangerous. You're born gay, you're born in the wrong body. Trying to change it, it's like trying to change somebody from being left-handed to being right-handed. It's cruel. It's always harmful. So what that does to the public mind, it not only deals with, it not only says kids shouldn't get it, adults shouldn't get it.
Right. It completely poisons the well.
Yeah, it poisons the well so terribly. And, we this is something that we have to deal with all the time at the Ruth Institute because, we try to explain this stuff and, we don't have a big microphone.
Well,
like
and
some of these guys do.
And of course, you're in California, and
no,
I'm not.
Oh, I'm not.
I
not
thought
in California.
I'm sorry.
No. At one time I was. I'm in Louisiana now. Thank God.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
but anyway, I know California. I was there.
Right.
So I know where you're going.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want his name to be said. But there's a very prominent state legislator in California who's running for the Senate from California, who is an advocate of mutilating children and all kinds of things. He appears in parades in S&M garb and things like that. And they're scrambling in California because they have a very similar law. And this Supreme Court decision, obviously, it's binding upon every state in the country. And he's trying to defend it, and California's trying to defend it. You are good to get out of California and get into Louisiana. We're up against a break. When we get back, we'll talk in more detail about this child's decision, including the majority, and we might even have time to talk briefly about the crazy dissent.
If you're in the market to buy or sell your home or office, but want to use a realtor who supports your pro-life values, you can rest easy when you select a realtor from Real Estate for Life. They are a worldwide network of pro-life real estate agents who will help you buy or sell your property. And the best part is, they'll donate a portion of the sale to a charity, like the Ruth Institute, at no extra cost to you. Find your local pro-life realtor at realestateforlife.org. And remember, select the Ruth Institute as your charity of choice.
With Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse. Now, I want you to take the floor because you said you want to say something about the First Amendment, because this was a First Amendment case. And in fact, and I'll let you go, but I just want to just sort of set the context. The court made a distinction between content-based and viewpoint-based speech. Content-based speech is more open to regulation than viewpoint related speech. The court found that this was viewpoint-related speech, and therefore the First Amendment had something to say about this law in Colorado.
Yes, that's exactly right. It was open and shut viewpoint discrimination, and you could see that coming when in the oral arguments in October, when Elena Kagan said, if a person walks in the office and says, "I'm same-sex attracted, and I want you to affirm me," the therapist can do that. But if they walk in the office and say, "I'm same-sex attracted, and I want you to help me get over it," you can't do that. That is open and shut, no question about it, viewpoint discrimination. And so they knocked it down on that basis, and that's how it was an 8-1. But Kagan and Sotomayor wrote a what do you call it, a concurrence.
Yeah.
They concurred with the decision, but they had their own reasons. And they left the door open. It's like they were giving a path forward to how you could achieve the same result without banging into the First Amendment. Well, come to find out, the very day that the case came down, both Colorado and the person in California who shall remain nameless presented a bill that they had already waiting in the wings that basically is a civil, that changes the civil law around this type of therapy, making it easier for people to sue their therapists for damages long after the fact, and with, I think, $450,000 potential fines, extended the statute of limitations. Wrongful death included a possibility that somebody could have wrongfully died because of the therapy that they received, conversion therapy, and only conversion therapy, I guess. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so, in other words, what they're doing is, okay, this is not going to be a First Amendment issue. This is not a speech issue. This is now in the civil code, and they're trying to accomplish the same result of basically scaring every therapist in the state away from even taking such a client.
Right.
By
creating what we call a private cause of action. Okay. And it's designed.
Okay, that's the language. Explain to people what private cause of action means.
Yeah. So if you fail on First Amendment grounds, as happened here, and you're going to fail if you try to reconfigure the language, then what you can do is go in a completely different direction and create the ability of a person to bring his or her own lawsuit in tort instead of a constitutional theory, and we call that a private cause of action. So now it's not the government that would intervene, it would be the person himself or herself. And of course what will happen then is, and that's the whole point of these proposed bills, is that the activists are standing at the ready to fund the lawsuits against the practitioners. So that's exactly what's going on. It's cynical. It's, we use the word lawfare sometimes. This is straight up lawfare. It's cynical, and I hesitate to use words like wicked and evil, but in this case, I'm going to use it because these are wicked and evil laws, because the laws are designed in such a way that they harm people. They harm children and they harm people. Yeah.
And if I were a therapist in one of those states, even if I didn't do this type of therapy, the idea that a client could come after you 10 years later and sue you, that the precedent that this sets, I don't know who wants to go into the caring professions with that kind of sort of Damocles hanging over your head. The kind of person who wants to go into therapy and help people and counsel people and stuff like that, they don't want to have to deal with that kind of thing. And so you're going to spook those people, run them out of the business, which they've already done. As you know, a lot of professions, they're basically, cleansing the Christians out of the profession as best they can by the not this particular thing, but things like it. To make it harder for you to operate as a professional.
Exactly. I'm teaching a class this semester at Mount St. Mary's Seminary, where I teach here in Cincinnati, on gender ideology. And one of the things that I'm telling my students is that we have to make a very hard distinction between authentic gender dysmorphia, that is, especially among adolescents, and gender ideology, which often manifests itself in AGP and other kinds of sexual fetishes. And what these laws do, and what the child's decision helps to overcome, is we can't accompany. These are what I say is we have to accompany people with authentic gender dysmorphia. We have to be there beside them. We have to be able. These laws prevent that. They say you can't do that. They make it illegal to do that.
And I want to say one other thing. About 2 years ago, I wrote an article in the National Catholic Register that was about verbal engineering, this is where I worked out that there are at least 9 different types of transgenderism, except that's not quite right. There are at least 9 different categories of people who can and sometimes do apply the label of transgenderism to themselves, or somebody else pins it on them. So whether you start with people who have some type of intersex condition, which really shouldn't be called transgenderism, but people bring them into the discussion, all the way to the autogynephiles, whom you mentioned, and the kid with gender dysmorphia and so on. All these different types of people, and then in addition to, you've got the people who apply the label to themselves in an opportunistic manner. The man who says he's a woman because he's actually a mediocre male athlete and he wants to beat the girls. Okay, there's nothing wrong with him psychologically. He's just a pretender.
Right.
So you have all these different labels, and you're sure to have confusion. And I think that type of confusion. I think that's I would add that to your syllabus.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? To make sure people see that confusion is willful.
Yeah.
The activists use that to change the subject whenever you get too close to the bone.
Jennifer, we're out of time. This always happens. We always run out of time. Time always wins. But thanks for being with us today. And, of course, we have the Ruth Institute linked in our show notes. And I look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ken. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening and supporting the Ruth Institute. Please check out our YouTube channel, Ruth Out and About, where you'll find all interviews with the Ruth Institute.